Sophia woke early that Christmas morning. The first rays of sunlight poured into the quiet house, reflecting off the flawless decorations she had so lovingly arranged. The tree sparkled with twinkling lights and carefully chosen ornaments, while the table was set for a family breakfast. At that moment, everything felt perfect. She took a deep breath, allowing herself a moment of gratitude for the life she had built with James and their two children, Emma and Thomas. For Sophia, Christmas had always been a celebration of love and togetherness, and this year would be no different, or so she believed. As she watched her children still asleep on the couch, their Christmas stockings beside them, Sophia felt a twinge of unease. In recent months, something between her and James seemed off. She chalked it up to the stress of his job, the weight of daily responsibilities, or perhaps the natural wear and tear of years of marriage. But this morning wasn't a time for worries. Determined, she reminded herself that the small signs of distance shouldn't overshadow the magic of the day. Today was going to be perfect. James entered the room with a faint smile and a cup of coffee in hand. He kissed Sophia's forehead and murmured a Merry Christmas that, though affectionate, lacked the warmth of previous years. Emma and Thomas woke up to laughter and hugs, rushing to open their presents. The sound of paper tearing and joyous exclamations filled the room. Yet Sophia couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that something was about to change. After breakfast, while the kids played with their new toys, Sophia began tidying up the scattered wrapping paper. James disappeared to take a phone call, but she didn't think much of it, assuming it was just another one of the endless tasks that always seemed to demand his attention even on holidays. Then, as she rearranged the packages under the tree, something caught her eye, a small box she didn't recall placing there. It was an elegant little package, wrapped in golden paper and tied with a red satin ribbon. Intrigued, Sophia picked up the gift and read the accompanying note. The words, written in delicate handwriting, struck her like an unexpected blow to the heart, to the woman who makes my heart race every moment. Yours forever. She reread the message several times, trying to make sense of it. It was a love note, but there was no indication it was meant for her. Sophia felt her throat tighten. Surely, it had to be some kind of misunderstanding. Perhaps James had prepared something special and simply forgotten to sign the card? But why would he hide the gift among the others? With trembling hands, she opened the box. Inside was a delicate necklace, its heart-shaped pendant encrusted with diamonds. It was stunning, but it didn't seem like something chosen for her. James knew she preferred simple pieces, jewelry with emotional meaning over luxury. Her mind began racing frantically. She considered confronting James immediately, but something held her back. What if she was overreacting? What if it was a surprise he planned to reveal later? Still, the note lingered like a haunting ghost, piercing her chest with a growing ache. Quickly, she hid the gift in a drawer in the living room, determined to find an explanation without raising any alarms. Yet the seed of doubt had already been planted. When James returned to the living room, wearing a distracted smile, Sophia tried to act naturally, but her gaze instinctively followed him. Every gesture, every word of his now seemed cloaked in suspicion. Could it be possible that the man she had shared so many years with was harboring such a devastating secret? She didn't know, but the magic of Christmas was beginning to unravel, piece by piece. Later, while preparing Christmas lunch, Sophia's mind was in turmoil. The discovery of the gift had cast a shadow over her heart, but she refused to let it ruin the day for Emma and Thomas. Every time she looked at her children playing carefreely, a pang of guilt struck her for letting the doubt consume her. James sat in the living room, seemingly engrossed in his phone. Suddenly, he stood up, phone in hand, and walked into the hallway, speaking in a low voice. Sophia, chopping vegetables in the kitchen, froze, her senses sharpening. His words were muffled, but his tone seemed tense, almost anxious. Yes, I know. "I told you today is complicated," he murmured, his voice drifting toward her. After a pause, a phrase came that sent a chill through Sophia's blood. "I promise." "Tomorrow night." The knife clattered loudly as it slipped from her grasp onto the cutting board. James quickly ended the call and returned to the living room, feigning nonchalance. Sophia struggled to steady the trembling in her hands. Her thoughts swirled like a storm. Who could he have been talking to? Why did the conversation sound so clandestine? She knew she shouldn't jump to conclusions, but she couldn't help it. More and more, the pieces seemed to fit into a picture she didn't want to see. When James came back to her, he casually asked if she needed any help. Sophia tried to smile, but the tension was written all over her face. He noticed and frowned. "Is everything okay?" he asked, lightly touching her shoulder. Sophia felt a pang of irony at his question. "Is everything okay?" She wanted to scream that it wasn't, but instead, she nodded and returned to chopping vegetables. As he walked away, she felt a growing resolve within her. If James was hiding something, she would uncover it. Sophia knew she needed to protect her family, but first, she had to understand the scope of what was happening. That night, when everything was calm, she planned to dig deeper. After lunch, while the kids rested and James watched a movie in the living room, Sophia felt an irresistible urge to search for answers. She needed an excuse to get away from him for a few minutes to look for something, anything, that might clarify her doubts. Claiming she had forgotten some Christmas decorations in the car, she grabbed her keys and stepped outside. The cold afternoon air wrapped around her, but it wasn't enough to cool the heat of the nervous energy coursing through her body. When she opened the trunk, at first, all she saw were the boxes of decorations that were indeed there, but the corner of a shiny package caught her eye. Sophia pulled the package out, her heart pounding in her chest. It was a luxury box wrapped in glossy paper, bearing the logo of an upscale store she recognized. Her chest tightened even more as she unwrapped it, revealing delicate, sensual lingerie in a vibrant red. This was certainly not meant for her. She froze, unable to process what she was seeing. The hidden gift, the mysterious phone call, and now this discovery, all of it seemed to point to a truth she wasn't ready to face. For a moment, Sophia felt her world crumbling around her. Questions without answers echoed in her mind. Why was James doing this? Who was he sharing secrets with while the family celebrated Christmas? Not knowing exactly how to act, Sophia placed the box back where she found it. She couldn't let James realize that she knew something. As she stepped back inside the house, her eyes landed on him, sitting comfortably on the couch as if nothing was amiss. She felt a mix of anger and sadness, a pain that began to suffocate her. Yet, beneath that pain, a resolve started to grow. She knew she had to stay strong for Emma and Thomas. If there was something that could destroy her family, Sophia would do everything in her power to confront it and protect her children. The tension Sophia had been trying to hide reached its breaking point during breakfast. Emma and Thomas, still glowing with excitement over their gifts, animatedly shared stories while James remained silent, his eyes shifting between his phone and his plate. Sophia, who had barely touched her food, finally let slip a question laced with intention. "James, who were you on the phone with earlier? You seemed worried." He looked up, startled by the firmness in her tone. "Oh, it was just work," he replied quickly, as if trying to shut down the conversation before it could begin. But Sophia wasn't intimidated. The weight in her chest demanded to be released. She set her fork down and fixed her gaze on him. "Work? On Christmas morning? Since when does red lingerie count as part of your responsibilities?" The silence that followed was deafening. Emma and Thomas stopped talking, looking at their parents with confused expressions. James turned pale but quickly tried to regain his composure. "Sophia, What are you insinuating? Don't you think this is a bit inappropriate in front of the children? Inappropriate? You want to talk about what's inappropriate, James? Sophia shot back, unable to hold back the pain and anger that had been building inside her. Maybe what's inappropriate is hiding gifts that aren't for your wife. Or whispering on the phone with someone else. James stood abruptly, his utensils clattering against the empty plate. Sophia, enough. I don't know what you're talking about, but you're blowing this out of proportion. Yet his eyes betrayed the confidence his words tried to convey. Emma began to cry softly, and Thomas, not fully understanding the situation, hugged his sister. Seeing her children upset, Sophia stepped back, swallowing the scream that was about to escape. She stood up, grabbed a napkin, and discreetly wiped the tears that had started to fall. We'll talk later, James. But don't think this is over. With one last reproachful look, she took her children by the hand and led them to the living room, leaving James alone at the table. The Christmas magic she had tried so hard to preserve had completely shattered. That night, as the house was steeped in tense silence, Sophia sat alone in the living room, the twinkling lights of the Christmas tree reflecting in her tear-filled eyes. The children had gone to bed early, exhausted from the tumultuous day, and James was locked in his office, claiming he needed to finish something important. Sophia knew it was just an excuse to avoid another confrontation. Determined to uncover the truth, she waited until she heard the distant sound of the shower upstairs. This was her chance. With firm steps and a racing heart, she picked up James's phone, which he had carelessly left on the couch, something he rarely did. Sophia's hands trembled as she unlocked it using the code he never bothered to hide. What she found in the messages was worse than she feared. Recent conversations between James and Mia, her best friend, exposed secrets she never could have imagined. The words were clear and piercing, like blades cutting through her chest. I can't keep pretending. I want to be with you, Mia. Just a little more patience, my love. After the holidays, I'll sort everything out. Sophia continued scrolling, finding passionate declarations and promises that had never been made to her. Photos of secret meetings, messages filled with intimacy. It all made sense now, the hidden gift, the phone calls, the growing distance. Mia, the person she had trusted most, was the other woman. The weight of betrayal was overwhelming. Sophia felt the ground vanish beneath her feet. It was as if all the years of friendship with Mia, all the memories with James, had been part of a cruel theater. She wanted to scream, to cry, but no sound came out. All she could do was breathe deeply, trying to gather her strength. When James came downstairs, towel-drying his hair, he found Sophia sitting on the couch, clutching his phone tightly. Her expression was one of pure determination, a mix of pain and anger he had never seen before. So it's true, she said, her voice low but heavy with meaning. James froze in the hallway, his eyes wide. Sophia, he began, but the words failed him. There's nothing left to explain, James. I read everything. All your promises, all your lies. She stood up, still holding his phone. With Mia? The person I trusted blindly? How could you do this to our family? James took a step forward, but her glare stopped him in his tracks. You've destroyed everything, she continued, her voice breaking at the end. Not just our marriage, but the trust one had in you. And now, I don't even know what's left for our children. She placed the phone on the table and walked upstairs without looking back, ending the conversation before James could respond. In that moment, Sophia knew something inside her had changed forever. Even though she didn't know what her next steps would be, she was certain she wouldn't allow him or Mia to destroy her. The next morning, the air in the house was heavy, almost suffocating. The tension between Sophia and James was palpable, but both did their best to avoid another confrontation in front of Emma and Thomas. The children, sensitive to the strange atmosphere, asked why their mom seemed so serious and why their dad was so quiet. Sophia, heartbroken, gave them a weak smile and said it was just the exhaustion from the holidays. But inside, she felt as though she was about to fall apart. While the kids were watching a cartoon, Sophia called James into the kitchen for a conversation. She closed the door carefully, crossing her arms as she stared at him. "I want you to tell the truth," she began, her voice steady. "To me and to them. You're going to look our kids in the eye and tell them what you did. They deserve to know who you really are." James averted his gaze, his shoulders slumping. "Sophia, please. The kids didn't do anything wrong. I don't want to involve them in this." "You already involved them." Sophia shot back, unable to hold back her indignation. "The moment you decided to betray our family, you put everything at risk. And now I have to deal with the fallout alone?" The conversation quickly escalated, their voices growing louder and louder until Emma appeared at the door, her eyes filled with tears. "Mommy, why are you and Daddy fighting?" The simple question hit Sophia like a knife. She took a deep breath, trying to collect herself, but couldn't find the strength to lie. She knelt down and pulled her daughter close. "Sweetheart, your dad and I are going through something hard. But I promise I'll do everything I can to make sure you and your brother are okay, all right?" Emma nodded, but the confusion and sadness in her eyes made Sophia feel like she was failing. Later, after sending the kids outside to play in the yard, Sophia sat on the couch, drained. James approached her slowly, as if afraid of triggering another outburst. "Sophia, I'm sorry. I know I messed up. But I don't want to lose my family. Please, give me a chance to fix this." She looked up at him, her expression bitter. "You don't want to lose your family? James, you already have. When you decided to betray the trust one had in you, when you put your desires above the well-being of our kids, you destroyed everything. And now I don't know if there's anything you can do to fix it." Sophia got up and went to the bedroom, closing the door behind her. That Christmas, which should have been a symbol of unity and love, had turned into a nightmare. Sitting on the bed, she looked out the window at the gray sky, wondering how she could move forward. The next day, Sophia decided she had to confront Mia. The friend who had been a constant presence in her life for years now felt like a stranger, an enemy. Memories of shared lunches, heartfelt confessions, and exchanged advice echoed in Sophia's mind as she drove to Mia's house. The sting of betrayal pulsed like an open wound. Mia opened the door with a surprised expression, but her face quickly changed as she registered Sophia's intense gaze. "We need to talk," Sophia said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. Mia closed the door slowly, her nervousness evident. "Of course, Sophia. What's wrong?" Sophia didn't waste any time. "I know everything. The messages. The meetings. You and James." Her words were sharp as knives, and Mia's reaction was exactly what Sophia expected, a mix of shock and guilt. Mia raised her hands as if trying to push away the weight of the accusation. "Sophia, I can explain. It's not what you think." "Not what I think?" Sophia repeated, her voice filled with disbelief. "I read the messages, Mia. I saw the proof. How long did you think you could keep this from me? How long did you think I'd stay blind to the truth?" Mia hesitated for a moment, then gave in. "All right, it's true. But you need to understand, Sophia. James told me the marriage was already over. He said you barely spoke to each other, that you were only staying together for the kids. He promised me he would resolve everything. Mia's words reignited the fury burning inside Sophia. Resolve everything? Promised? He lied to both of us, Mia. But do you know what hurts the most? It's not that he betrayed our marriage. It's that you, my friend, betrayed our friendship. You were like a sister to me. How could you do this? Mia tried to move closer, but Sophia stepped back, raising her hand to stop her. No, don't touch me. I came here to look you in the eyes and tell you that you destroyed everything we had. There's no forgiveness for what you did. Mia began to cry, but Sophia stood firm. She turned and left the house without saying another word, feeling that, despite the pain, she had reclaimed a small part of her dignity. As she walked to her car, she felt the weight of the decision she still needed to make. It wasn't enough to confront James or Mia, she had to decide how to rebuild her life. After the confrontation with Mia, Sophia returned home feeling both exhausted and determined. She knew there was still something left to address: James. His betrayal couldn't go without consequences. When she entered the living room, she found him sitting on the couch, his eyes glued to his phone. At the sound of the door opening, he looked up and immediately recognized the expression on Sophia's face. It was as though she carried the fury of a storm, ready to unleash. "We need to talk," she said in a firm, controlled voice that sent a chill through James. He put down his phone and tried to adopt a conciliatory tone. "Sophia, I know I made mistakes, but I want to fix this. We can get through this together." She let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head. "Get through this? James, you destroyed the trust we spent years building. How do you expect to fix something that's in ruins? You lied to me, to our kids, and even to yourself. And now you want to talk about getting through this?" James tried to defend himself. "I felt suffocated in our marriage, Sophia. You were so busy with the kids, with the house, it felt like there was no space left for us. I made a mistake, but it was because I felt neglected." Sophia stared at him, her eyes blazing with indignation. "Neglected? You dare to blame me? While I was here, holding our family together, working to keep what we had, you chose to betray the trust one gave you. You weren't neglected, James. You were selfish." He tried to interrupt, but she raised her hand, cutting him off. "No, I'm not done. Maybe you thought you could justify what you did, but the truth is, this isn't about me or about our marriage. It's about your choices. You chose to betray. You chose to lie. And now, you'll have to face the consequences." James fell silent, finally realizing there was no excuse that could undo the damage. The weight of Sophia's words seemed to crush him. He lowered his gaze, his shoulders sagging in defeat. "Sophia, I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want to hurt anyone." "But you did," she replied, her voice steady but laced with hidden pain. "And now, James, you need to leave this house. There's no room for you here anymore." He tried to protest, but Sophia was unwavering. "I'll take care of the kids. I'll move forward with my life, but you are no longer part of it. It's time for you to deal with the consequences of your actions." With that, Sophia turned and walked upstairs, leaving James alone in the living room, drowning in his own mistakes. She knew this decision was only the beginning of a long journey, but for the first time, she felt like she was regaining control of her life. The house felt quieter after James left. For Sophia, the emptiness he left behind was strange, but not exactly painful. It was more of a necessary pause, a space for her to reorganize her life. However, dealing with the children was another matter. Emma and Thomas felt their father's departure like an open wound, and Sophia struggled to find the words to comfort them without hiding the truth. That afternoon, while she tried to put together a puzzle with Thomas and soothe a still tearful Emma, the doorbell rang. When she opened the door, she found herself face to face with Luke, James's older brother. His expression was one of genuine concern, and he held a box of presents in his hands. "Can I come in?" he asked, his voice soft and hesitant. Sophia nodded, surprised. Luke had always been polite, but never particularly close. Even so, his visit felt like a relief amid the emotional chaos of the past few days. He stepped inside and crouched down to greet the children, handing them the box. "I thought you might like this, some board games and chocolates. It's not much, but I thought it could help." The children smiled for the first time in days and ran off to open the gifts, leaving Sophia and Luke alone in the living room. He turned to her, his expression serious. "Sophia, I heard about everything. I don't know how James could do this to you. To all of you. And I want you to know I'm here to help in any way you need." Luke's words took Sophia by surprise. She had expected veiled criticism or a speech defending his brother, but instead, there he was, offering support without asking for anything in return. "Thank you," she said, her voice shaky. "It's good to know I'm not completely alone." Luke nodded, sitting down on the couch beside her. "You're not alone, Sophia. I've always admired your strength, the way you take care of the kids, how you've built this family. James doesn't know what he's lost. But I see it. And I'll do whatever I can to help you get through this." The sincerity in his words touched Sophia in an unexpected way. For the first time in days, she felt like she didn't have to carry the weight of everything on her own. There was someone willing to share her pain, even if just for a moment. As Emma and Thomas ran around the house with their new games, Sophia and Luke continued talking. He listened patiently as she spoke about the betrayal, her fears for the future, and her determination to protect her children above all else. When Luke left hours later, Sophia felt strangely lighter. He had brought a warmth she hadn't anticipated and, more importantly, a sense that not all was lost. There were still people willing to stand by her side. The small town where Sophia lived had always been quiet, a place where everyone knew each other by name, and the stories of each family were woven into the collective narrative. But that week, Sophia and James's separation became the main topic of whispered conversations in cafes, town squares, and grocery stores. The scandal of the betrayal, involving Mia, added a bitter twist to the gossip that spread like wildfire. Sophia, used to walking the streets with her head held high, felt the weight of judgmental stares. While buying bread at the bakery, she overheard the hushed voices of two older women nearby. "Did you hear? It was with her best friend. What a tragedy." Sophia pretended not to hear, but the tightness in her chest told a different story. At the grocery store, she encountered pitying glances and gestures of solidarity that, though well-meaning, only reinforced the feeling that her private life had become a public spectacle. When the children returned to school, Emma was the first to notice that something was different. Some classmates whispered as she walked by, and one of them, without any filter, said, "I heard my mom say your dad left because he loves another woman." Still grappling with the pain of James's absence, Emma ran home crying, and Sophia found her curled up on the couch. "Sweetheart, what happened?" she asked, concerned, as she stroked her daughter's hair. "They're talking about Daddy. Saying he left us because he loves someone else." Sophia felt her heart break all over again, but she tried to stay calm to comfort Emma. "My love, sometimes people talk about things they don't understand. You and Thomas don't need to worry about what others say. The important thing is that I'm here for you, always." Sophia knew she needed to take action. She couldn't control the rumors, but she could protect her children from bearing their weight. That evening, sitting at the kitchen table with Luke, she opened up about the difficulty of dealing with the judgment. People talk as if they know everything, as if they're perfect, and the kids are suffering because of it. I don't know what to do. Luke looked at her seriously. Sophia, you're stronger than you think. Don't let those voices diminish who you are. People will always talk, but it's up to you to decide what really matters. His words brought her some relief, but also renewed determination. Sophia realized she needed to show everyone, especially her children, that her dignity didn't depend on others' opinions. The next day, as she dropped the kids off at school, Sophia walked with her head held high, ignoring the whispers around her. She knew the road ahead would be long, but she was prepared to face every obstacle for her family's happiness. While reorganizing the house after James's departure, Sophia decided to tackle a task she'd been avoiding for years: cleaning out the attic. Amid boxes of old memories and forgotten decorations, she found a small wooden box that immediately caught her attention. It was simple, with a golden latch, and seemed untouched for a long time. Opening it, she discovered old letters, carefully folded and still carrying the faint yellowed scent of aged paper. The first letter began in a familiar tone. It was written by James, dated before their wedding. His words were sweet, full of promises of eternal love and dreams of a perfect life together. For a moment, Sophia smiled wistfully, remembering the version of the man she had married. But as she read through other letters, the tone shifted. Some revealed small lies, subtle at the time, but now glaring red flags. There was one letter in particular, dated a month before the wedding, that made her heart stop for a moment. James mentioned a woman Sophia didn't recognize, someone with whom he seemed to have had a brief but meaningful relationship. He confessed to feeling torn but concluded, marrying Sophia is the right decision, because of the future we can build together. It was as if those words erased all the meaning behind the I do she had heard at the altar. As she delved deeper into the letters, Sophia began to realize that James's lies weren't new. They had been accumulating over the years, hidden in small gestures and words. Even before they started their life together, he had carried secrets she never imagined. Sophia closed the box, feeling a mix of sadness and relief. As painful as it was also liberating. She no longer needed to wonder what had gone wrong or where she had failed. The truth was that the problem had never been her. James had always been someone incapable of true commitment, and the letters were proof of that. That night, sitting alone in the living room, Sophia stared at the box on the table and made a decision. She would keep the letters, not as a reminder of her pain, but as a lesson to never again ignore her instincts or forget her worth. James's past would no longer define her future. The discovery of the letters marked a turning point for Sophia. The initial shock gave way to a clarity she hadn't felt in years. For the first time since the betrayal, she saw the future as something she could shape with her own hands, without depending on anyone but herself. Christmas, which had seemed like a painful reminder of what she had lost, became a symbol of a fresh start. Inspired by the decorations she had so carefully arranged for the holiday, Sophia had an idea. She had always loved creating Christmas displays, and the compliments she received from neighbors and friends weren't just polite gestures. Maybe she could turn that passion into a new beginning. Determined, she began planning a small Christmas decoration business to support her family and reclaim her independence. In the weeks that followed, the house that once felt sad and heavy began to fill with energy again. Sophia spent hours designing prototypes for ornaments, wreaths, and centerpieces. The children joined in, painting small decorations and contributing creative ideas. The activity not only kept Emma and Thomas busy but also brought smiles back to their faces. It felt as though every piece they crafted together rebuilt a fragment of their family bond. To promote her work, Sophia turned to social media and asked for Luke's help. He eagerly offered his support, taking professional photos of her creations, setting up an online page, and even helping distribute flyers around town. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Neighbors and acquaintances began placing orders to decorate their homes. What started as a modest project quickly gained momentum. Sophia found that each sale wasn't just a financial boost, it was a validation of her new journey. The compliments she received weren't just about the decorations, they were about her bravery. "You're an inspiration," several people told her. Though she still faced curious stares and whispered comments, Sophia now knew she didn't have to justify herself to anyone. One afternoon, as she was finishing a large order, Emma walked into the room and hugged her without warning. "Mommy, I'm proud of you." The simple yet heartfelt words brought tears to Sophia's eyes. In that moment, she realized her fight wasn't just about rebuilding herself, it was about showing her children that strength can emerge even from the hardest of circumstances. Sophia had been reborn, not as the woman James had betrayed, but as someone who chose to fight, grow, and create a better future for herself and her family. A few weeks later, as Sophia's business gained momentum and her home finally felt free from the weight of the past, an unexpected visit disrupted her day. It was a quiet afternoon, and Sophia was packaging wreaths for a large order when she heard the doorbell. When she opened the door, her heart tightened at the sight of James standing there, his expression a mixture of regret and desperation. "Sophia, can we talk?" he asked, his voice barely masking his anguish. She hesitated but eventually nodded. She wanted to hear what he had to say, not because she expected anything new, but to put an end to any lingering hope he might have of turning things around. They sat in the living room, and for a moment, the silence between them felt heavy. James began, his hands nervously clasped together. "I messed up, Sophia. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I've realized that nothing I did was worth it. Mia. She meant nothing compared to what we had." Sophia crossed her arms, her gaze calm and steady, a composure that unsettled him. "And now you realize this? After destroying our family? After hurting not just me, but our children too? Why are you here, James? What do you expect me to say?" James ran a hand through his hair, exhaling deeply. "I hope you can forgive me. I hope we can try again for the kids, for what we built together. I still love you, Sophia. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to fix things." She remained silent for a long moment, letting his words hang in the air. Finally, she stood and began pacing the room, as if she needed the space to organize her thoughts. "James, what we had doesn't exist anymore. You destroyed it with your choices. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the lies, the lack of respect, the selfishness. And now you come here saying you still love me? That's not love. It's regret for losing control of your life." "I've changed, Sophia," he insisted. "I've realized how much you meant to me, to us." She stopped walking and turned to face him, her expression unyielding. "I believe you're sorry. But regret isn't enough, not for me. The love I felt for you died the day I uncovered your lies. And I can't, and won't, pretend that this can be salvaged." James lowered his head, defeated. "So, this is it?" he asked, his voice heavy with sadness. "Yes, this is it," Sophia replied firmly. "I don't want to live in the past anymore, James. I want to move forward. And you need to do the same." James left shortly after, leaving behind a Sophia who, despite the pain of revisiting everything, felt lighter. His visit served as a reminder of where she had been and where she no longer wanted to return. As Sophia began to rebuild her life, Mia faced a starkly different reality. The affair, which she and James had thought would remain hidden, had become public knowledge. In a small town, loyalty and friendship were sacred, and Mia quickly found herself a persona non grata. The first sign came at the supermarket, where her usually lively conversations with acquaintances turned into awkward silences and disapproving stares. Whispered comments reached her ears like daggers. How could she do that to her friend? What kind of woman gets involved with someone else's husband? The shame burned on her face, but she tried to keep her head high. Her work, once a source of pride, began to suffer as well. Long-standing clients, many of whom were friends of Sophia, started canceling appointments with vague excuses. Mia knew these weren't coincidences. She became invisible at social events where she'd once been the center of attention. Even those who attempted civility did so with a coldness that made their true feelings clear. Despite everything, Mia tried to justify her actions to herself. "I fell in love," she told her reflection, as if repeating it would ease her guilt. But the truth was inescapable. She had betrayed not only Sophia but also the values she once claimed to hold dear. Regret began to consume her, especially during lonely nights in her house, where memories of her friendship with Sophia haunted her like ghosts. One day, as she left her home, Mia found a note pinned to her door. It was anonymous, but the words left no doubt about its purpose. "The choices we make define who we are. You destroyed more than a friendship, you destroyed your own dignity." The paper trembled in her hands as tears streamed down her face. This was who she had become, someone despised for her decisions. The worst part, however, was knowing that James had also distanced himself. He, who had made so many promises, vanished when the weight of the consequences began to bear down on them. Without James's support and without Sophia's friendship, Mia found herself utterly alone, forced to face the abyss created by her actions. Mia considered reaching out to Sophia, begging for forgiveness, but she knew there weren't enough words to undo the damage. All she could do was live with the consequences and try, somehow, to rebuild her life. Days passed with a sense of renewal for Sophia. Her Christmas decoration business flourished, her children seemed happier, and slowly, the pain of betrayal faded into a distant memory. But one thing remained constant: Luke's unwavering support. He had become not only a loyal friend but also a comforting presence in her life. His frequent visits, long conversations, and small gestures of help in her new journey were like a pillar holding her steady. One evening, while working together on a large order, Sophia noticed something different about Luke's behavior. He seemed distracted, as though he wanted to say something but didn't know how to begin. When they finished, she looked at him with a gentle smile. "Luke, what's going on? You seem off today." He averted his gaze for a moment, taking a deep breath before responding. "Sophia, there's something I need to tell you. Something I've kept to myself for a long time out of respect for my brother and fear of what you might think of me." The seriousness in his voice made Sophia's heart race. "What is it, Luke? You can tell me." He stepped closer, carefully taking her hands in his. "I've always admired you, Sophia. From the moment James introduced you to our family, I knew you were special. All these years, I've kept my distance because you were his, and I never wanted to interfere. But now that everything has changed, I feel like I need to be honest with you. I've always loved you." Sophia froze for a moment, his words echoing in her mind. She had never imagined that Luke harbored these feelings, hidden under years of silence and respect. She gently pulled her hands away, trying to process what she had just heard. "Luke, I don't know what to say." He smiled, despite the tension in the air. "I'm not telling you this to pressure you or to expect anything in return. I just thought it was time you knew. And no matter how you feel, I'll still be here. I'll always be by your side, as a friend, as family. As whatever you need." His words touched something deep within Sophia. There was a sincerity in his voice that made her realize how important he had been to her over the past few months. Still, she couldn't ignore the complexity of the situation. "Luke, I need time. My life is still coming together, and my kids are my priority right now. I don't know if I'm ready to think about something like this." "I understand," he said with a sad but understanding smile. "And I just want you to know, no matter how long it takes, I'll be here. You deserve to be happy, Sophia. And I hope that one day, you'll trust me enough to let someone take care of you." When he left, Sophia lingered at the door for a long time, staring at the streetlights and trying to make sense of the conflicting emotions inside her. On one hand, she felt flattered and grateful for Luke's honesty. On the other, she was afraid to open her heart again. Still, she couldn't deny that he had planted a seed of something that, perhaps in the future, she could explore. In the weeks that followed, Sophia's idea to organize a Christmas exhibition for the community began to take shape. It would be an event to showcase her work, but also a celebration of the values she held dear: family, honesty, and renewal. The initiative quickly garnered interest from locals, including shop owners and residents eager to be part of something special after a tumultuous year. Sophia threw herself into the event's organization, crafting stunning decorations and planning every detail with care. The event would take place in the town's old square, adorned with sparkling wreaths, lights strung across trees, and a grand golden star at the center. But her vision went beyond just showcasing her new life. It was also a silent response to the betrayal she had endured. When the day arrived, the square looked breathtaking. Sophia moved among the guests with a genuine smile, but beneath her poised demeanor lay a clear purpose. Among the invitations she sent, 2 held special significance, one to James and the other to Mia. She knew they would both attend, driven by curiosity and a need to reassert themselves in a community that had largely shunned them. Mia was the first to arrive, wearing a dress that seemed deliberately chosen to draw attention. She attempted to smile, but the discomfort in her eyes was evident as she realized how few people approached her. James arrived shortly after, keeping to a more discreet corner, as though trying to avoid direct stares. Sophia, however, knew they would both be paying close attention to what she did next. When she stepped onto the small stage to deliver her opening speech, the square fell silent. She began with simple yet heartfelt words. "This event is more than a Christmas celebration. It is a celebration of the values that carry us through difficult times: love, integrity, and resilience. I want to thank everyone who stood by me this year. And I want to dedicate this evening to families who, despite facing challenges, find ways to rise again." Her gaze briefly swept over the spots where James and Mia stood. She didn't need to say anything more. Her words carried all the weight of what she wanted to express. The power of her silence was her weapon, and the admiration in the eyes of those listening was her validation. The evening was a triumph. Guests praised Sophia's work, took photos, and purchased her decorations. Meanwhile, James and Mia left before the event ended, slipping away quietly without the applause or attention they seemed to seek. As the event concluded, Sophia felt a peace she hadn't experienced in a long time. Her revenge wasn't loud or destructive. It was silent, elegant, and delivered with a clear message. She didn't need to stoop to prove her strength. She had already won. A few months after the Christmas exhibition, Sophia's life had changed significantly. The business she had started as a form of therapy was now her primary source of income, and its success exceeded her expectations. Her ornaments were being sold in neighboring towns, and invitations to participate in fairs and events began pouring in. With financial growth came the opportunity to move to a new home, leaving behind walls that had witnessed so much pain. The new house was smaller but cozy, with a view of the hills surrounding the town. The children were thrilled about the move, especially Emma, who eagerly helped decorate her new room with her mother's creations. For Sophia, this space symbolized more than just a change of address, it was a representation of freedom and renewal. Days in the new house were filled with laughter and simplicity. Sophia found joy in small moments, like making breakfast with Emma and Thomas or watching them play in the backyard. Yet, at night, when the house grew quiet, she still pondered the future. Her heart, though stronger, still bore scars. Luke remained a steady presence in her life. He helped with the move, carrying boxes and making Emma and Thomas laugh with his jokes. His gestures were always kind, never crossing the boundaries Sophia had set. But there was something in the glances they exchanged, something unspoken that lingered between them like a tentative promise. One afternoon, while they sat on the porch of her new home, Luke looked at her with a rare seriousness. "Sophia, you know how much I admire your strength. Watching you overcome everything. It's inspiring. But above all, it's a privilege to be by your side. You've turned what could have broken you into something beautiful, and I just want you to know that I'll always be here." Sophia smiled, moved by his words. "Thank you, Luke. I don't know how I would have made it without you. But I still don't know what the future holds for me. I need more time to figure out what I really want." "I know," he replied, with an understanding smile. "And I'll wait. As long as it takes." As the sun set, painting the sky in golden hues, Sophia gazed at the landscape and felt a peace she hadn't experienced in a long time. She didn't have all the answers, but she knew she was on the right path. The new house, the new life, everything was a fresh start. And for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe the future could be full of possibilities. Spring brought renewed energy to Sophia and her family. Flowers brightened the garden of their new home, and the lightness in the air seemed to mirror the spirit that now filled Sophia's days. She was happy, not in a fleeting way, but with a serenity built gradually, brick by brick, through the choices she had made. Yet, there was something she still avoided fully confronting, the feelings that arose every time Luke was near. He continued to visit regularly, helping with decoration projects or simply bringing coffee and chatting about the day. The children adored him, especially Thomas, who often ran to the door upon hearing him arrive. "Uncle Luke is here," he would shout, filling the house with laughter. For Sophia, Luke's presence was a source of comfort, but also a reminder of something deeper growing between them. One evening, as they prepared a simple dinner together, Luke paused beside her, holding a bowl of salad. "Have you ever noticed how contagious your laugh is?" he said suddenly. Sophia looked at him, surprised, and noticed something different in his eyes. "Luke, what do you mean?" she asked, trying to keep her tone light, though her heart began to race. "I mean that your happiness is something everyone around you feels. And, Sophia, you make me happy." He set the bowl on the table and stepped closer. "I know I've said this before, but I don't think I'll ever tire of repeating it. I love you. Not because you're strong, not because you're beautiful, but because you're you. And I want to be someone who supports you, who stands by your side no matter what." Sophia felt his words wash over her like a warm wave. For so long, she had built barriers around her heart, protecting herself. But in that moment, something within her softened. She took a deep breath, steadying her emotions. "Luke, I feel something for you too. But I'm scared. Scared of opening my heart and getting hurt again." He held her hands gently. "I won't rush you, Sophia. I want this to be something you choose, not out of loneliness or need, but because it feels right. I just want you to know that I'm here, willing to wait as long as it takes." In that moment, Sophia realized there was something different about Luke. He wasn't trying to fix her or hurry her decisions. He simply accepted her, with all her scars and doubts. A sense of peace settled over her. Maybe it's time to give the future a chance, Luke. Carefully. One step at a time. The smile that lit up his face was enough to convince Sophia she was making the right decision. As the two continued preparing dinner, laughing like old friends, she realized that life, despite all its twists and turns, could still offer something beautiful. A year later, Christmas once again brightened the small town, bringing with it the promise of new beginnings. At Sophia's home, the atmosphere was different, lighter, filled with life. Emma and Thomas decorated the tree with enthusiasm, laughing and arguing over who would place the star on top. The aroma of freshly baked cookies filled the air, and soft music played in the background, creating a perfect setting for the celebration. Sophia, sitting at the dining table, watched her children with a serene smile. It was hard to believe how much her life had changed since the previous Christmas. The woman who once felt broken now saw herself as whole, stronger than ever. The pain had been replaced by peace, and she had finally understood that the true magic of Christmas lay in the love we build and share, even after adversity. Luke arrived shortly after, carrying a tray of sweets and a present in his hands. "I hope there's still room on the table for this," he said with a warm smile. Thomas ran to hug him, followed by Emma, who tugged at his hand to show him the ornaments. Sophia watched the scene, her heart swelling with warmth. Luke was no longer just a visitor, he had become part of the family, a pillar in their lives. After dinner, they gathered in the living room to exchange gifts. The children laughed and hugged as they tore into their packages, while Sophia and Luke exchanged knowing glances. When it was her turn to open Luke's gift, she found a small box containing a delicate necklace, its pendant engraved with the word rebirth in fine lettering. "Rebirth. That's what you've done, Sophia," he said, holding her hand. "You've shown me that it's possible to rebuild a life, no matter what. And I hope this Christmas is just the beginning of many more we'll share together." Sophia smiled, her eyes glistening with tears. "You were there for me when I needed it most, Luke. And now, I choose you. Not out of loneliness, but out of love. A love that grew slowly but became strong enough to face anything." They embraced as the children clapped and laughed, excited by the moment. The room felt warmer, more alive, as though the love filling the space had become something tangible. When the night came to an end and the children were finally asleep, Sophia and Luke sat on the porch, gazing at the city lights twinkling in the distance. "You know what I've learned this year?" she said, looking at him. "What?" he asked, gently holding her hand. "That Christmas isn't about perfection. It's about embracing imperfection, accepting change, and finding beauty in what makes us human. This is my Christmas of redemption." They embraced under the starry sky, and in that moment, Sophia felt that despite her scars, her life was exactly where it was meant to be, at peace.